Welcome to the Making Nice with Naughty podcast, where we delve into the art of intimacy for the rule-following, organized, perfectionist, practical, and color within the line types. I'm your co-host, Dr. Tom Murray, a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, and the author of the book that started it all.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frances Robbins, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. My background includes a master's degrees in nursing and international health, along with a doctorate in business administration. We're here to explore the world of intimacy in a way that resonates with even the most structured and detailed-oriented individuals.
In Making Nice with Naughty, we uncover the secrets to navigating intimacy for those who thrive on rules, order, and perfectionism.
Join us as we discuss practical insights, expert advice, and personal stories that will guide you through the journey of connecting intimately while staying true to your organized and rule-following nature.
Whether you color within the lines or prefer a perfectly outlined plan for everything, we've got you covered.
So buckle up and get ready to explore the fascinating world of intimacy. With us, Making Nice with Naughty is not just a podcast. It's your guide to a fulfilling and organized love life.
This is Making Nice with Naughty. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Making Nice with Naughty. I'm Dr. Tom Murray.
I'm Frances Robbins.
And today we're going to continue our discussion on the book Making Nice with Naughty and do an exercise that is explored in the book called The Work by Byron Katie. And this is an excellent opportunity to question some of the mind chatter that may be interfering with your sexual readiness and your attraction to your partner.
And we agreed that I would be the guinea pig.
You're my victim. And so for the listener, what I would encourage you to do is to download the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which is available on the Byron Katie website, thework.com, and just Google Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and you'll follow along with us and think about what your answers would be to the various questions as we progress through the worksheet. So, Dr. Frances, we have we talked about prior to our recording today an example of something that someone who does something that irritates you. And if you would, the first question on the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is who angers, disappoints, or confuses you, and why? What is it about them that you don't like?
I am frustrated with Keith because whenever he replaces the toilet paper in the bathroom, he inevitably puts it on wrong. It's a big deal, Tom.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Now, I've come to that resolution where I just kind of take a pause. We've been together for 26 years. It's happened every single time, and I've just kind of come to that resolution where and then I just switch it and go on with life.
Yeah.
I don't even say anything to him anymore.
And so the second question is, how do you want them to change, and what do you want them to do?
Well, I want Keith to put the toilet paper on the roll, in the holder with the paper coming out, not behind. So the roll, the paper should be like that, not like that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
That's
like
the
that.
right way.
That's the right way.
As a wonderful over-controlled person, we have definitely our right ways to do things, and we want other people to do them the right way too. So the second question is, what is it that they should or shouldn't do, be, think, or feel? what advice could you offer them?
Well, Keith shouldn't put the toilet paper roll on backwards.
And maybe even Keith should be considerate.
Sure. I mean, consideration that, sure, I think that would be nice.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, uh, and the next question is: do you need anything from Keith? What does he need to do in order for you to be happy? More of the same, I'm
Put
guessing.
just put the toilet paper on the roll the correct way.
And the next one is: what do you think of them?
Well, I just think that it's inconsiderate of him
He's
to do it.
yeah, inconsiderate.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Mm-hmm. I
When he
think
does
that
that, what immediately comes through your
I
head?
it's more of is he stupid? What is wrong with him? This is not rocket science,
I
and and he's consistent.
he's consistent with his stupidity.
Yes, when it comes to the toilet paper roll.
When my sons do it, I often think, am I raising Neanderthals?
And I mean, I have more to say. I'll wait to the end, but I
Yeah,
have more to say too because it's improved from previous situations.
sure,
So
sure. And then, what is it that you don't want to experience with Keith again?
I don't want to experience the frustration and then having to redo it. Like why? And just to make things even more frustrating, we live in a really old house and the toilet paper rolls are kind of they're inset, the holders are inset into the walls. And
Yeah,
sometimes I break my nail trying to pull it out of there to turn it around to put it in right. So that makes it even more frustrating.
for sure, for sure.
So I have injury.
Very unjust, isn't it? Very unjust.
At
Okay.
the moment, it feels that way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's now revisit so the listener has now heard what the different answers were. So let's now revisit it. So, who angers or disappoints or confuses you, and why? What is it about them that you don't like? And I believe you said that you're angry at Keith because
Well, it's just frustrating. It's very frustrating because I feel like then I have to turn around and redo it.
okay.
And I feel like that it's not it's something that should be pretty simple. And so then I wonder, why does he continue to do this knowing how much it bothers me?
Yeah, yeah. So if we were to frame it just a little bit differently, Keith
Mm-hmm.
should put the toilet paper on the roller over top versus coming from underneath, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so when we do the work, there are these four questions. And the four questions is the first one is it true? So, is it true that Keith should be installing the toilet paper with the toilet paper over the front? Is it true?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
notice, by the way, that there is no right or wrong answer. It's just you just allowing whatever it is to meet the question. And so for you, it's true. Can you absolutely know that it's true? This is the second question. Can you absolutely know that it's true that Keith should be doing this?
Yes.
Okay. And so the third question is how do you feel inside? How do you react inside when you believe the thought he should be doing this and yet he doesn't do it?
Well, I think that's where the frustration happens, right? And just the there's frustration, there's some resentment that I have to go back and correct it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when you experience, and this is in general, this is not specific to
Mm-hmm.
this particular context, but when you experience frustration with Keith, by the way, this is a kind of an addendum to number 3. When you experience frustration with Keith, how does that impact how you show up to him?
I'm I can be kind of short tempered or standoffish or just like goodness. And so it really kind of discounts his value.
Yeah, yeah. So then the fourth question is
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, you're in the bathroom doing your business,
Yes.
and imagine what it would be like if it weren't possible for you to have the thought,
Mm-hmm.
he should be doing this. If it weren't possible for you to have the thought, he should be doing this, who would you be in that moment if it weren't possible for you to have the thought, he should be doing this?
I I don't know. I don't know if I could even have that. That would be so hard. So if the
It,
thought wasn't even possible, I wouldn't have the thought if it wasn't
that's
possible.
right. So if you wouldn't have the thought, who would you be in that moment? With the thought, you would be frustrated. In the
Mm-hmm.
moment, if it were possible, and I'm not saying not have the thought, but if it were possible to not have the thought, who would you be?
I'd just be myself. I wouldn't have any. I would just think, what a foolish person who put this toilet paper on here
Well,
backwards.
you wouldn't have the thought of he was a foolish person because you wouldn't have the awareness that he
No.
should have done it this way, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, my experience with you, Francis, is that you're an incredibly accepting person. And so without the judgment that it should be a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, and
It
since
just
you said
is.
you would be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
would that translate into I would be more of accepting person?
Yes, it would just be what it
It
is.
would be just what it is. What I just learned about you, Francis, is that it isn't the toilet paper that's the problem. It's your judgment about the toilet paper that causes the frustration. In the absence of the judgment, you would just accept it as it is.
That is correct.
Right.
That is very correct.
So, what is the opposite of Keith should turn the paper around so it's facing out? What is the opposite of Keith should do that? The
So he
opposite.
shouldn't do it.
He shouldn't do it. How do we know if we were to look at just evidence? How
Okay.
would we know in that moment that he shouldn't be doing it? If we were
How would we
looking
know
at
in that?
reality, if we were looking for
Okay.
evidence that he shouldn't be doing it, how would we know that he shouldn't be doing
It wouldn't be done.
Well, in fact, it wasn't done. That's
Right.
reality, right? Reality
Right.
is that he shouldn't do it in that moment. How do we know? Because he didn't do it.
Correct.
Right. So just notice, we talked about this in the prior episode.
Mm-hmm.
When you believe someone should be doing something, and yet reality is that they didn't do it, that
Mm-hmm.
thought feels heavy. What is it inside? What's it like inside to believe the thought when you're there and you see that toilet paper and it's not facing the way that you want to, and you're having the thought, God darn it, Keith, does that thought feel light or heavy?
It's a heavy thought.
It's a heavy thought.
And that means it's not real.
Boop, boop,
Or
boop.
it's not.
That's right.
Yay!
You got it. You got it. So we know that he shouldn't be doing it in the moment. We know that he shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be doing it. How? Because he didn't do it. Right. That's reality.
Wow. That's some of
Now,
that voodoo, that psycho voodoo.
that you can have a preference that it be done a different way,
Yes.
right? But as soon as you attach as soon as you argue with reality and you say that he should be doing it a certain way, when in fact he didn't do a certain way, you feel frustrated. And when you're in that state of frustration, that then impacts how you show up to him, right? Which then he responds to that way of showing up. And you can see how for some people that may impact their sexual relationship.
Of course, in this example, it's a very trivial
Yeah.
example.
Mm-hmm.
In your clinical setting, when you have a couple that comes in and they're having difficulty with intimacy, and this, you're looking at this and you're using the judge your neighbor worksheet with them, does it take time, Tom, to kind of go through all those steps where a person kind of gets it? Or
Sometimes, but it's quite powerful. I mean, I am
mm-hmm,
struck by how often people awaken to the realization, oh, in the absence of my judgment about this thing,
mm-hmm,
there would be no problem. That the problem only arises because I have a judgment about it. At the end of the day,
mm-hmm,
what's important is
mm-hmm.
that you're able to wipe your ass. It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm thankful that there's paper there, right?
you're thankful.
But in a clinical setting, though, it seems like this exercise would be so empowering
Yes,
once the couple or that person has got it,
that's right. That's right.
because now it's especially for the over controlled person. I would imagine now I have a control that I can look at this situation from a different lens,
Yes,
and I have the ability to do that,
right.
where I'm not like a victim, or
That's
I'm
right.
not living under circumstances I have no control for,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. A victim of circumstance. That's what I was thinking about. That's interesting. That's very powerful.
it is. And so I want to go to another one,
Okay.
uh, um, and it was in essence, uh,
Would it be the Byron Katie's methodology? Is that what
yeah.
you were thinking of?
I'm looking at one of the answers, which was around that Keith is inconsiderate
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, for uh, um, how he puts the toilet paper in
Right.
the dispenser,
Right.
right? So if we go with the thought, Keith is inconsiderate for how he places the toilet paper in the
Mm-hmm.
dispenser. And we can go through the 4 questions. Is it true that Keith is being inconsiderate? Is it true?
Yeah, that would be really difficult to prove. I mean, I'm assuming that.
Well, notice what the ego wants to do there. This is a 1-syllable answer, and look what the ego wanted to do, right? Is come in with a
Oh,
much more explanation. It's a 1-syllable answer. Is it true that Keith is being
yes.
inconsiderate? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Can you absolutely know that it's true that Keith is being inconsiderate? In that moment that he puts the toilet paper, can you absolutely know that he's being inconsiderate?
Well, no.
No,
I
no.
can't.
Okay. How do you react inside when you believe the thought Keith is being inconsiderate?
Well, it makes me feel devalued.
Makes you feel
It ups,
devalued,
it upsets me.
right? The thoughts that he's being inconsiderate upsets you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And who would you be if it weren't possible to have the thought he's being inconsiderate? In that moment, you're sitting there. Who would you be in that moment if it weren't possible for you to have the thought he's being inconsiderate?
I would just be. I wouldn't have the thought. It
That's right.
wouldn't it would just be what it is.
Yeah. Well, let's assume that he had put the toilet paper, quote unquote, correctly, and you would be in a state of, dare I say,
I would
equanimity.
I would be in a state of awe. I would be hallelujah. Hallelujah. We
right?
got it.
So you would be exuberant. Yeah. If
Finally.
yeah, yeah. So now let's go ahead and do some turnarounds because this is a really good one.
Okay. Okay.
Keith is being inconsiderate. What is the opposite of Keith is being inconsiderate?
Okay, I got this one this time. Considerate.
Keith, that's one way of saying it. Keith is being considerate. What's the evidence that in that moment he puts the toilet paper in the roll that he's being considerate?
The fact that it's even there.
The fact that it's even there. The fact that it's even there. Because I'll tell you, living in a house with two teenage boys, there have been plenty of times I've gone to the bathroom and there is nothing on the roll. Right? So Keith,
Yes.
there is evidence that Keith is being considerate.
Yes.
There's another turnaround. I'm
Not affected.
being inconsiderate.
Oh.
In that moment,
I hadn't really thought about that.
so I'm being inconsiderate. So you're there and you see the toilet paper not the way you would like it. I'm being inconsiderate. And what is some evidence that you're being inconsiderate in that moment? Dig
That
real deep there, Francis.
I'm not acknowledging that it's there. I'm not appreciative.
I'm not appreciative. Boy, that's pretty inconsiderate. What else?
Nitpicky.
I'm nitpicky, right? That maybe I'm being inconsiderate to how his preferences in terms of how the toilet paper lays.
Oh, that never crossed my mind. I never, ever thought of that. So
Right.
that's an interesting perspective I had never considered, Tom.
So there's three turnarounds, but in these cases, this is why it can be helpful to talk to somebody who's trained in doing the work because not every situation has all three turnarounds. But in this situation, there are really only two viable turnarounds. That Keith is being considerate, that I'm not being considerate about, well, actually, I'm going to take this back. There is three. I'm not being considerate towards Keith, right? The third one is I'm not being considerate toward
Myself.
So when you're all upsetting yourself, what's the evidence that that's a form of inconsideration?
Well, the evidence is how it makes me feel.
Yes.
And how it just can, throw a real wrench into the day.
That's right. That's right. And then you get really full and you go to Keith and you're like, Keith, how many times do I have to tell you? Like I love these flosser sticks. Right?
Okay.
And I have them everywhere. And one of the things that my partner does is she gets very upset if she finds these flosser sticks around the house because she thinks they're gross. Why would you have them around the house? And she's totally right, But we could use the same kind of scenario, right? Is that when we get upset, we are distressing ourselves, that we're being unkind to ourselves, because whenever you argue with reality, you suffer. And that is optional, and therefore it's unkind or inconsiderate to yourself to put yourself in a state of dis-ease and then show up in the world, in this case in your relationship, from that position of dis-ease.
That's very insightful. That's very, very insightful. And I can see as also as a clinician how, because I'm not well versed in this, how it would, you really need to work through this with somebody who pretty much knows what they're doing, right? It would be a difficult thing to, I could do this worksheet on my own, but I would not come up with the same conclusion that that has happened as we're talking. I mean, I it really never occurred to me that Keith would want to put the toilet paper on the wrong way. And that maybe that's better for him,
That's right.
right?
That is
Like that,
aesthetic preference.
had you not said that, it wouldn't have ever come to my mind. So to me, I mean, I know this is just a very kind of a silly example, but it really brings home the importance of seeking seeking professional services from somebody who knows what they're doing. I mean, if someone came to me and showed me this worksheet and said, "Clinician Francis, I need you to help me fill out this worksheet," I promise you, we wouldn't have come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have been more like, "You are damn right."
Well, that is true. And what for anybody who's interested in watching Byron Katie do the work, you can find plenty of YouTube videos, and these videos are relatively brief, and I
Mm-hmm.
can consume them like crack. I think it's just incredibly inspiring,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't help but to have your own flash of insights, because you're applying your own experience to these scenarios, and you, like you said earlier, it's very empowering when one accepts that they are the curator of their own suffering. Because once you accept that you're the curator of your own suffering, then you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what can I do to mitigate this? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can I develop greater acceptance? How can I loosen my attachment, my grasp around my preferences? Can I
Mm-hmm.
hold my preferences like a butterfly on the tip of my finger? And so, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if my partner puts the toilet paper on in a way that doesn't reflect my preferences, and I sense, or maybe even know for sure, that they have no preference on how they put the toilet paper, then I can alleviate my suffering instantaneously by taking the 30 seconds it takes, if even that long, to go ahead and flip the toilet paper, and then have a sense of satisfaction that it's done without any projection of anger and resentment
Mm-hmm.
on the partner. And then by extension, because if I'm feeling angry and resentful and my partner doesn't know it, then really I'm just, as the Buddha said, it becomes the hot coal that I'm squeezing. you
Right.
know
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's. I'm thinking in my mind the things that I know that Keith goes back behind and changes that I do. Lo- for like loading the dishwasher.
right. That's a big one for a lot of
I will
couples.
I will load the dishwasher, and then I'll come back to put something else in the dishwasher and it looks completely different. But he never says anything to me. We'll have a chat afterwards.
That reloading the dishwasher. You talked about the other thing about uh, 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 the clothes, and how
Yeah, so that was another example is but I think it's one of the other examples that I had talked to Tom prior to our recording today was um, I when Keith does my laundry, which I appreciate, so I don't want to misunderstand that, but the many times, however the clothes end up in the hamper, is how they will get folded and put away. So dresses are hung up inside out, t-shirts are folded inside out, underwear's inside out, socks are inside out. And I typically get up a couple of hours earlier than him, so I find myself dressing in the dark. And later in the morning, I'll realize that my shirt is inside out, or I'll go use the bathroom and my undies are inside out. Yeah. And that is incredibly frustrating. And sometimes I don't realize it until I'm out in public, like my shirt is inside out.
Right.
And of course, I live in Oregon. Nobody cares, I promise you. They just think it's a fashion trend.
Yeah.
They don't care. So, but that is like, oh my goodness, my shirt's inside out,
And one could maybe argue that Keith is incredibly accepting, because the assumption is that if you want the clothes to be folded right side out, you would take them off so that they're right side out when they go into the hamper. So he's
Right.
like, I am just going to love Frances just as she is.
And I purposely put things inside out in the hamper because I want that layer of the fabric to be for sure to be washed better, because it's closer to my skin and it's more soiled than that, and I don't want the outside of my clothes to get like water faded and stuff, and those little bollies that come up from the sweaters. So I purposely turn them inside out.
Yeah. So let's go to one other one. We're not going to go through all of them, but I want to go to one other one, and that is, what is it that you don't want to experience with Keith again? And you said, I don't want to experience the frustration, right? Mm-hmm. And the kind of the turnaround is, I'm willing to experience the frustration, right? I'm willing to experience it. And because there's a part of being over-controlled, right? That is a part of our personality. It's not going to, my job in writing, Making Nice with Naughty isn't about making someone not over-controlled. Mm-hmm. So frustration is one of the favorite F words of over-controlled people, right? Frustration. And so it is okay to have this frustration, but what can get in our way is when we think, oh, the evidence, or I need to get rid of the frustration. And so how I do that is by controlling other people's behavior. I need the other people to rescue me from my own frustration by doing what I want them to do, or by them doing what I want them to do. And and once you get clear that, oh, I am willing to feel frustrated, I'm willing to sit with that feeling, so that I don't inadvertently hurt other people in order to not feel frustrated.
Can you get a frustration tolerance?
Say more.
Can you get a frustration tolerance where you kind of have this level of frustration, and it doesn't seem to spark all the other cascading emotions that can happen until it reaches like a tipping point? Is the fact that it doesn't cause the cascading, then you're not in essence frustrated?
Well, that's the idea, is that once you realize that anytime you feel frustrated, it's because you believe very strongly in a particular rule. Right? There's behind every frustration is a rule that you feel is being violated. And so frustration is in essence pointing you to some kind of rule. And so if you can use the frustration as a pointer, what is the rule that I feel is being violated? And is that rule universal? Is it absolutely true?
So Tom, I want to ask you about this. This is something that really bothers me. All kidding aside, this is
Yeah.
something that really bothers me, and it affects me so badly. It bothers me when people don't thank me or thank other people when something is given to them or done for them.
Right.
So the rule is you got to thank people. You got to be
People,
grateful.
yeah. People should thank people.
And so when that doesn't happen, there is a degree of anger that comes up in me. Truly,
Yeah.
there is,
Yeah.
where I want to be like, fine, never again am I ever doing anything for you. And I think that in my head, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if we were to do a quick turnaround,
Uh-huh.
they should thank me, right? We can do the turnaround. What's the first turnaround
Okay.
is they shouldn't thank me,
They shouldn't thank me.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The other turnaround would be I should thank them.
Thank them.
I
Why
should
would I thank them?
I
Why would I
should
thank
thank
them?
them for highlighting for me this rule that I have that is causing me to feel dysregulated on the inside. That if they were compliant, I would never have to look at this part of me that can be judgmental about other people. I thank them.
That's a hard pill to swallow. But I will,
Here's
I
a drink
will,
of
I
water.
will, I will think about that.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
what,
good thing to leave us with today, too.
yeah. Eckhart Tolle, who's a spiritual teacher and author that I mentioned in the book, one of the things that he says is that we need to have unconscious people in our life in order for us to see our level of consciousness. Right. So this, there can be this perception of I need everyone to be as conscious as I am, right? And when in fact it's the fact that there are people who have lower levels of consciousness, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but it's that it's because they have lower levels of consciousness that I get to see that I have a more elevated level of consciousness. And you can have some gratitude for that observation and have some compassion that for people who have lower levels of consciousness, according to Eckhart Tolle, they're going to experience naturally a lot more suffering. Right. They're going to experience, and you can have compassion, that it makes sense to me you would have this suffering in your life because of the level of consciousness you're bringing to this life situation.
I'll have to study on this. Man, I know we have to kind of cut it short today.
Yeah.
In our chatter. This has been so good, Tom. This has been really good.
Well, I appreciate you being a guinea pig for me and allowing me to work through the work of Byron Katie so that the listeners can have a sense of how this very simple, very pragmatic, and very procedural way of looking at your own mind chatter and how that mind chatter can shape your experience, and then how that experience then impacts your intimate relationships.
Wonderful. It's very, very insightful. Very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And that wraps up another episode of Making Nice with Naughty. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of intimacy for the rule-following and organized.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found our discussions helpful or intriguing, Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the podcast. Plus, it lets us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future episodes.
Have questions or you want to share your experiences? Connect with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Links on the description.
And for more in-depth insights, be sure to grab a copy of my book, Making Nice with Naughty, available on Amazon and Audible for the audiobook.
Thank you again for spending time with us. Remember, you can be both organized and adventurous in matters of the heart.
Until next time, keep making nice with Naughty. To renew your passion
and ignite your desire.